All right, I'll be handing over to Wesley, who is one of our marketing outreach officers, and he'll be going over brain tumors this week.
Hello everyone, my name is Wesley, um, and today I'm going to be talking about brain tumors. Okay, so brain tumors represent a significant challenge in medical practice, affecting patients of all ages. Understanding the complexities and is essential for healthcare professionals, particularly in a surgical context, as it informs prevention, detection, and treatment strategies. In the UK alone, over 12,000 people are diagnosed with primary brain tumor, with 5,000 deaths annually, making them one of the most deadliest forms of cancer relative to incidence. Despite this, they receive only 3% of national cancer research funding. So if you look on the image on the right, there's four diseases there. There's the leukemia, breast cancer, brain cancer, and glioblastoma, which is a type of brain cancer. So 9 out of 10 children with leukemia survive. Same with people with breast cancer, but only 2 out of 10 people with brain cancer survive. And the statistic is worse with glioblastoma, with only less than 10% of people surviving. So this just shows how serious the matter really is and why we need more funding in such a dangerous disease. So there are different types of brain tumors. So brain tumors are abnormal growths of cells within the brain. There are two types of tumors. Benign, meaning they're non-cancerous, so they don't grow uncontrollably, and malignant, which are cancerous, so they grow uncontrollably and these need special treatment. There's also primary versus secondary brain tumors. So primary brain tumors originate from the brain's own cells. They can arise from glial cells, which form gliomas, neuronal cells, and or other supporting tissue. These tumors tend to be localized, and their treatment typically involves surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy. Now, secondary brain tumors, such as metastatic tumors, originate from cancer cells that spread through the brain from other parts of the body. So, say you develop a cancer in your lungs or in your breast, then this cancer can then move to your brain, and that's what a secondary brain tumor is. So these tend to be more aggressive and indicate advanced disease, requiring comprehensive treatment strategies, e.g., systemic therapies and palliative care. So there are multiple causes of brain tumors. So there's genetic factors, environmental factors, and just lifestyle choices. So, in terms of genetic factors, genetic predisposition plays a significant role in development of brain tumors. Certain conditions such as neurofibromatosis and Lee-Fraumeni syndrome increase the risk of tumor formation. Environmental factors include exposure to radiation, chemicals, and pollutants. Research indicates that prolonged exposure to specific um, substances may increase the risk of developing brain cancer. So there's the group of substances is called carcinogens, and these have the likelihood to actually cause cancer. And lastly, lifestyle choices such as smoking and diet. So carcinogens are very common. So, for example, when you smoke, you expose your lungs to carcinogen. That's why smoking actually leads to cancers in the lungs and mouth and so on. And so, smoking and diet can also influence the risk of brain tumor development because if you have a cancer, say in the lungs, this can then move to the brain as a form of a secondary brain tumor. So, adopting a healthy lifestyle may contribute to lower incidences of various cancers. So now I'm just going to go through the past few decades and the developments in actually detecting and treating brain cancer. So in the 1970s, X-rays were first introduced, and they were the first non-invasive imaging technique. Moving to the 1980s, CT scans were developed, and they offered a clearer cross-sectional imaging of the brain. In the 1990s, MRI technology was introduced, providing detailed images of brain structures. In the early 2000s, PET or PET scans were introduced, enabling metabolic imaging and allowing the identification of active tumor tissues. In the 2010s, integration of functional imaging techniques such as fMRI that assess brain activity in relation to tumors, aiding surgical planning. And in the 2020s, emergence of innovative, sorry, emergence of innovative imaging technology, including AI-assisted analysis, enhancing precision in tumor detection and characterization. So as you can see, over the past few decades, we've made major breakthroughs in actually detecting brain tumors. So now we're going to move on to a few different types of brain tumors. So the first one is glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is a highly aggressive and fast-growing brain tumor that originates from astrocytes, a type of glial cell that supports nerve cells. It usually develops in the cerebral hemispheres and infiltrates surrounding brain tissue, making complete removal difficult. Glioblastomas tend to recur quickly even after treatment, so they come back easily and are associated with poor prognosis. So common symptoms include persistent headaches, seizures, nausea and vomiting, personality or cognitive changes, weakness or numbness, usually on one side, and vision or speech problems. There are also a few treatment options such as surgery, so maximal safe resection. So this is just removing the tumor depending on its position in the brain. Radiotherapy, so targeted radiation to destroy the cancer cells. Chemotherapy, usually temozolomide or TMZ. Tumor treating fields, TTF, which is a electric field therapy to slow the growth of the tumor. Prognosis is generally poor. Median survival is around 15 months after diagnosis. The next brain tumor I'm going to talk about is meningioma. So meningiomas arise from the meninges, the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord. They are typically slow-growing and non-cancerous, and many are discovered incidentally during brain scans for other issues. While most are benign, some can be atypical or malignant, and may grow faster or recur. The effect on the patient depends on the tumor size and location. So common symptoms for this one include headache, seizures, vision changes, hearing loss or ringing in the ears if near the auditory nerve, personality changes or memory problems depending on the location within the brain, and also are often symptomless if the tumor is very small. So the treatment options include monitoring, so just waiting and watching the tumor to see if there's any asymptomatic and slow growing. If the tumor is asymptomatic and slow growing, then you can't do much. So you would just watch it and monitor it, make sure it doesn't become dangerous and you don't have to take further steps. Surgery, so curative for accessible tumors depending on its location within the brain. Radiotherapy, used if surgery is impossible or for recurrence. And often the tumor does have excellent prognosis, especially if benign and fully removed. And lastly, pituitary adenoma. So pituitary adenomas are non-cancerous tumors that arise from the pituitary gland, a small but crucial gland at the base of the brain that regulates many hormones. These tumors may be functioning, producing excess hormones, or non-functioning, not producing hormones. Depending on the size and hormonal activity, They can cause a wide range of endocrine symptoms and may press on nearby structures like the optic nerve and other nerves, which could then affect other motor skills such as vision. Common symptoms. Hormonal symptoms depending on the hormone type. So, prolactinoma, irregular periods, infertility, nipple discharge, ACTH secreting, Cushing's disease, weight gain, stretch marks, high blood pressure, GH secreting, acromegaly, so large hands, feet, facial changes, and then there's also mass effect symptoms. So there might be vision problems, especially peripheral vision and headaches. Treatment options: medication such as dopamine agonists, sorry, agonists for prolactinomas, e.g., cabergoline. Surgery for that's the transphenoidal through the nose resection. Radiotherapy for recurrent or residual tumors, and the prognosis is generally good with as long as you've been given the correct treatment. So I'm just going to talk about a few prevention and how you can actually avoid getting brain tumors. So a healthy diet, adopting a nutritious diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains can strengthen the immune system and overall health, and this potentially reduces the risk of actually getting cancer. There's regular exercise. Engaging in regular physical activity helps maintain a healthy weight and reduces the risk of developing various cancers, including brain tumors. Avoiding carcinogens, so as I said earlier, habits such as smoking can expose you to carcinogens, which can risk you developing a cancer. So avoiding exposure to such carcinogens, such as certain chemicals, radiation, tobacco products, is essential for reducing cancer risk. And lastly, regular checkups. Regular health screenings and checkups enable early detection of potential issues, leading to timely intervention and can prevent tumors from developing. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll be moving on to Salma, who is one of our education officers, and she'll be doing a couple of the UCAT questions.
Hi everyone, my name's Salma. As Serena said, I'll be going through some UCAT questions today. So starting with verbal reasoning, um, you should you shouldn't really take any longer than 30 seconds. So I'll give you all 30 seconds to attempt the question. Feel free to put your answers in the chat, and I'll reveal the answer in 30 seconds. Okay, I can see one answer in the chat. So Serena, if you want to do a click, please. 2 clicks actually. So the answer was false, and I've got a little explanation at the bottom as to why that is. Um, yeah. Okay, can we have the next slide, please, Serena? Yeah, again, I'll give you guys 30 seconds to answer this question in the chat. And everyone feel free to put all of your answers. I want to see what everyone thinks the answers are. Okay, so time's up, everyone. Could I have 2 clicks, please, Serena, for the answer? So the answer for this question was C. And again, I have a little explanation if you want to quickly skim over it. Okay, so now we'll do some decision. Oh, okay. I don't know why the answers are on there. Um, but yeah, those are the answers anyway. Sorry about that. Um, and this is the explanation for the answers. And then the second question, I'll give you guys, you shouldn't take more than a minute, but I think for this question, you won't need a minute. So I'll give you 30 seconds for this question. Okay, time's up, everyone. Serena, can I have the answer, please? So the answer for this one was B. Yes, secondary school children need to learn how politics will affect their lives, so making it mandatory will ensure they are properly informed. Could I have the next slide, please, Serena? Okay, so I'll give everybody 2 minutes to have a go at this question. We're doing quantitative reasoning now. Also, if anyone has any questions about any of the answers, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try to respond to them. Okay, you guys have 10 seconds left if you want to start putting your answers into the chat, please. Okay, so the 2 minutes are up. I can give everyone 10 more seconds to put answers into the chat. Okay, Serena, do you want to reveal the answer, please? So the answer for this question was C, and on the side is the working out as to how to reach the answer. So all you needed to do was divide 10.47 by 3, which would have gotten you the answer of 3.49. And then you can see in the table that 3.49 is the only option that charges per month, which is midweek for 0 to 6 month contract. Okay, next question, please, Serena. I'll give you guys again 2 minutes. Please try and put your answers into the chat. I really want to see how everyone's getting on. Guys, we're getting more responses in the chat, so keep it going. If you've got an answer, please feel free to put it into the chat. Okay, time's up, everyone. Serena, could I have the answer, please? So the answer for this question was E. And again, I have the explanation if anyone wants to skim through it really quickly. Okay, next slide, please, Serena. Okay, so now we'll do a situational judgment. I'll give you guys 2 minutes again to answer the question and put it into the chat. Okay, a lot of people have started putting answers in the chat now. So, Serena, can I have the answer, please? So the answer for this one was B. Sam's doing the right thing by owning up to his mistake and apologizing, but in the middle of a busy shift, it may be best to just correct the mistake and then later explain and apologize fully. Therefore, this is appropriate, but not ideal. It's also worth mentioning quickly that for situational judgment, you can still get partial marks. So if you get the right side of the argument, just not the right answer, you can still get partial marks for your answer. Okay, last slide, please, Serena. Okay, so again, I'll give you guys 2 minutes just to answer and put your thoughts in the chat. Some people are saying that the information is cut out. Is there any way we can zoom out a bit? Or
Not really. I think there was a problem with the screenshot that we took.
oh, okay then, that's fine. Okay, can I have the answer, please, Serena? So the answer for this question was C. Could I have the explanation as well, please? And the reason it's C is because Shona has noticed that Anwita is upset and has a duty to address this, regardless of how busy the ward is. This consideration does have some importance, as Shona needs to ensure all patients on the ward get sufficient attention and may need to ask for support with the ward round. So that was the last UCAT question of today. So thank you everyone for contributing in the chat.
All right, thank you very much, Selma. Now we're gonna move on to our year 13 student that will be talking about his admissions experience and any tips that he has. So I'll stop sharing the screen so then he can share his PowerPoint.
Hi, I hope everyone's doing okay. Let me just start sharing. All right. So, yeah. So I'll be talking about my medicine application journey so far. I guess it's almost finished because I've got my offers and things like that. I'm just waiting for my results in about 3 weeks to confirm where I'm going to go. So I'll start off by introducing myself. So my name is Hamza. I just completed my A-levels this year in biology, chemistry, maths. And I'm the first person to apply for medicine in my family. Went to a state comprehensive secondary school, like a lot of you might have gone to. And my firm choice is UCL, and my insurance is the University of Birmingham, for a bit of context. So I guess I might as well go through all the different stages. So start off all the way back in GCSEs, all the way up to year 13. So it's about a 3 or so year journey. And I've listed a bunch of different things. I'm not going to talk about everything, but I guess some things, if you want to just take as inspiration of maybe you want to do certain things or you didn't know that certain things were available. So you can take some pointers and things from here. So as I mentioned, I went to a non-selective state school. I left with 8 9s and 2 8s, which set me up pretty nicely to apply and meet the entry requirements for basically all the unis. And I'm going to talk a bit about super curriculars later and extracurriculars. But in year 11, I was also deputy head boy, so kind of adding on to leadership and things like that. Mention things in your personal statement, which I'll talk about in a bit. After that, I moved to a sixth form. And during sixth form and year 12, especially, that's where you're going to do the bulk of the preparation for your applications in terms of your volunteering. A lot of people start their volunteering in year 12. Your work experience might be in year 12, along with your super curriculars. And a lot of people start adding extracurriculars in so that they can mention it into their personal statement. And also, notably, your predicted grades. And also the idea that you're starting your A levels now. So in year 12, I was doing quite a bit of mentoring for GCSEs. Also entered a bunch of Olympiads. So if you don't know what Olympiads are, they kind of nationwide extra exams that you can do, and they're like specific for a subject. For example, you can do the chemistry Olympiad or the biology Olympiad, and they're mainly stuff that is stretching beyond the specification. So if you can do quite well in these, it shows that you're reading into the subject quite well, and it can help strengthen your application, especially to more academic universities. So I did the chemistry, maths, and biology Olympiad. Also, things like essay competitions and research competitions, you might be able to enter them in year 12 and year 13, along with whatever leadership positions you want to do, for example, being in committees. And yeah, in sixth form, I was deputy head boy as well, along with securing your predicted grades, which is really important because a lot of people are capped off based on their predicted grades. For example, if they need, let's say, A star AA as the entry requirement for university, but they end up getting, let's say, A B, then they might not be able to apply to the university that they wanted to apply to, regardless of maybe their GCSEs, just because their predicted grades got capped off. So it's really important to get your predicted grades to at least meet the entry requirement for most universities, which would probably be about A star AA for the vast majority. And then after year 12, you're going to have your summer holidays. So those of you in year 11, make sure you enjoy this holiday because you're not going to get one the next year. And the next holiday you're going to get is the year 13 one. So this summer holiday is really important. A lot of people do their work experience and their Ucat in this time. So I started my Ucat on the 22nd of August, I still remember. And you're going to spend most of that holiday working on your Ucat and making sure that that's good. Also, I personally did my work experience in the summer holidays, so just before, I think, breaking up. I did it around then, one at the University of Birmingham in a research lab, and one in a hospital, bog standard one that most people do. Also, in the summer, you can enter a bunch of essay competitions. So I entered the Kelvin Biological Sciences essay competition from Peterhouse College at Cambridge. Also, a couple of the essay competitions, for example, Medic Mentor do a couple. There's a bunch around. You can have a look around. But yeah, this is a good time to do it because you're going to have the summer holidays, so you'll have plenty of time to get through some essays. And if you can do well in some of them, it can be really good on your application as well. So, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is the UCAT because even if you've got really good grades elsewhere, your UCAT can limit you quite a lot in terms of which universities you can apply to. We'll talk about strategically applying to different universities, regardless of the UCAT, in a moment. But yeah, your UCAT can definitely stop you from applying to a lot of universities that you may potentially want to apply to, even if other aspects of the application are really good. So make sure that you're working on your UCAT and you're trying to do as best as you can in it. So in my year of applying, we obviously had 4 sections. So now you have 3. And I got the 88th percentile, so just short of the top decile, which was generally fine to apply to almost all unis. So then after this summer, at the end of this summer holidays, after my UCAT, I actually wrote my personal statement. I had a couple drafts beforehand, but they were pretty bad. So I thought, leave it. I'm going to work on my Ucat. And then after my Ucat, I had about a week or so before school started again. And then I did my personal statement writing then. Then you've got year 13. Year 13 is really packed because you've got a bunch of interviews, and then obviously your actual exams too, and waiting for your offers. Maybe you didn't get an offer, so that's a bit of a setback, things like that mentally. So year 13 will be pretty packed, and also submitting your personal statement, you might need to do like some refinements and things at the start of the year. So in year 13, I got all four of my interviews. If you didn't know, you can only apply for 4 universities for medicine and dentistry. So I did two of my interviews in December and two of my interviews in January. And most notably, my University of Birmingham interview, which was I think the 29th of January or 30th. I sat my interview, and then less than 24 hours later, I got my offer, which was quite surprising because I think it's the first year that Birmingham might have done offers coming out really early, because I saw some people get their offers like 2-3 days straight after the interview, which was really surprising. So that was pretty cool, pretty good. And I guess it was good to know that you had an offer in the bag. And yeah, now I guess I'm at a stage where I'm just waiting to confirm my grades. So results day 14th of August. But yeah, now moving on to strategic applications. So the overarching message is to apply to your strengths. Even if you want to go to a certain uni, but let's say you haven't met their minimum entry requirement, there's no point applying there because you can potentially just get rejected off the bat. And also you've got to see which parts of your applications are really strong. For example, if your GCSEs are weak, but your predicted grades are good and your UCAT is really good, then you'd be surprised you can apply to a lot of the really good universities. And also if your UCAT is low, but your GCSEs and other aspects are good, then you can still apply to a lot of universities. But you've just got to do a bit of research and a bit of digging into where your strengths are valued most. And there's a lot of different resources that you can use. For example, the Ucat people. So I put a picture in the bottom left. So that's what they kind of do. So it says for the University of Birmingham here, like the mean Ucat who are invited to interview, the mean Ucat who's given an offer, and stuff like that. So that way you can see where you're at in relation to the people. For example, I remember Aston University was about 2,600. So then if you're like 300-400 above that, then you know that it's like a really comfortable place to apply to because you've met the UCAT entry requirement, as long as the GCSE and everything are fine as well. Also, the My UCAT Strategic Application Guide, they're quite good, really comprehensive. They deliver one each year, so I'd recommend looking into that. And What Do They Know, which is kind of the Freedom of Information website. So if you're applying to certain universities, like especially Oxford, where you want to look more detailed into each college or something like that, then that's quite good because then you can get information about things more niche that would not necessarily be as easily accessible if you were to just look on their course website. Now, looking into how university shortlist into interview is really important because there's something called post-interview offer rates. So that's how many people who were interviewed got an offer. So that can be a really good determiner about where you want to apply. Because, for example, if some place, like let's say University of Birmingham, lately in the past couple of years, their post-interview offer rate is about 80%, I think. So if you've got an interview for the University of Birmingham, you can be a bit rest assured because there's an 80% chance that you're going to get an offer after that. Versus other universities where there might be a 30% offer rate, 20% offer rate. So just because you've got an interview, it doesn't mean that you'll get an offer as easily in those universities. Other universities like UCL, after they shortlist to interview, everyone is on an equal playing field in terms of it doesn't matter what your UCAT was and GCSEs was. It's solely based on interview performance to get an offer. So looking at these things in terms of post-interview, how they weigh things up after interviews, that's really important. For example, I've listed the University of Birmingham again. So to get into an interview, and when they rank you based on your GCSEs, UCAT, and whether you're contextual. So GCSEs have a 45% weighting. So if your GCSEs are really strong, then this could be a good option. And you would look at this for quite a few universities and then make a judgment based on that. So I remember my GCSEs were quite good. and my Ucat was fine. So that's why University of Birmingham was quite a safe choice for me. Also, contextual is really important because if you're able to get into contextual schemes, that's really helpful because A to B scheme from the University of Birmingham, if you get into that scheme, then they guarantee you an interview. And looking into these things over the summer and knowing where you want to apply and stuff like that, that would be quite good. A lot of universities have started doing something on their website where you just fill in your information and then it automatically tells you whether you're contextual or not. I remember doing this for UCL, and Imperial released one, but it was after I applied. Um, so you just put your postcode and certain things like that in, and then it will output whether you're contextual or not. I know that notably for the University of Birmingham, they have a offer like calculator kind of thing. So you put in your information, GCSEs, contextual, predicted grades, stuff like that, and then it will tell you how likely you are to get an offer. It's not quantitative, but it would be like likely to be shortlisted to interview, but and like unlikely to be shortlisted for interview. So I guess that could be a bit helpful. I remember using that. Oh yeah, and make sure that you meet the entry requirement for GCSE and A level. A lot of people do really well in their GCSE, but let's say they've got like a 5 in English language or a 6 in English language. You just got to be a bit careful and check which universities allow that. I think generally a 6 in English language is fine. I'm not sure if any universities have a 7 or something like that. So just checking the entry requirement and making sure you meet the minimum. That's always something to look out for. So yeah, those are the main things that you want to take into account. Yeah. So now going into what I was doing. So I looked at my strengths, my GCSEs, and also being contextual for some medical schools, not all of them. My UCAT was 88th percentile, and my predictions were good. So based on these, I did some research and things like that. I used a few different resources, which I mentioned in the last slide. And I would want to apply to universities that I was comfortably above the UCAT cutoff, especially if they gave points or weightings for GCSEs, because that would play in my favor. Same with predicted grades. And also unis which count me as contextual, because, for example, I think the Imperial cutoff this year was around 3,000, but the contextual cutoff was about 2,800 or 2,830, something like that. So you can see that there was a 200-point reduction just for contextual. So if you know that you're contextual in certain places, that might be another reason to apply to there. And all of this helps you to paint a picture about which universities you can apply to, which options you have. Make an Excel sheet. It's not too hard. Just put the names of the unis, where you're, I guess, most likely to get into. But then there's also other stuff to take into account. For example, lifestyle. Do you want to live close to home, far from home? Certain cities. Maybe like you want to go places where they have good food. Like certain cities are better for, I guess, sports facilities and things like that. There's like a bunch of different lifestyle choices that you want to have to look into yourself and see what you prioritize. For example, going to London, it's a really big city, but it's not, I guess, everyone's vibe. Some people want to go to smaller cities. I guess the main thing is whether you want to stay at home or not. So that, otherwise, there's another thing where I guess people don't want to live at home, but they want to live relatively close to home. For example, if you live in Birmingham, if you go into the University of Leicester, it's only a 1 hour drive away. So stuff like that to take into account. Most unis opt for one aspirational university, 2 achievable universities, and 1 safety. So that's usually what most people do. Safety as in something where you're like very much comfortably above the average student that you take. 2 achievable universities where you're basically on par with what you need, and 1 aspirational. I guess if you want to, you don't need to have a safety if all aspects of your application are really good and you're confident about interviews and stuff like that. You don't necessarily need a safety, but it doesn't hurt to have a safety, I guess, because at the end of the day, medicine at all universities is still medicine. And a lot of people ask what to do with their 5th choice. Some people put biomed, some people put dentistry, biology, neurology. A lot of these are really common courses to put as a 5th. But to be honest, I would recommend that you don't need to put a 5th choice, especially if you want to do medicine. If you've got no offers in year 13, would you take a biomed degree or whatever degree you wrote down? Would you take that degree and do 3 years of that degree? or would you rather just take a gap year and reapply? That's what I would consider. Because let's say you put biomed as a fifth and you got no medicine offer, but you got the biomed offer. If you would take that biomed offer and you would do 3 years of biomed, then you might as well put it down. But let's say you got the biomed offer, but you would rather just reapply that year and get into medicine the next year, then there's no point in doing that because you're not going to take the offer anyway if you're in that position. Also, sometimes they make you submit another personal statement or you have to do an interview, so it could just be extra headache. So it's really person dependent. For the vast majority of people, they want to do medicine, which is why they're applying. So in that case, you really don't need a fifth choice. But yeah. Now moving on to the personal statement. So for my year, it was a free text. You just had like a basically a blank sheet of paper and you just had to write down your personal statement. But now it's a question and answer gap fill style. And I see why they did it. It does make it easier and more accessible for students because if someone came from a background where no one was in university and maybe their school wasn't as good in terms of guiding them on how to submit a good personal statement, they would just be staring at a blank piece of paper. They don't know where to start. So I guess it does make it more accessible because they've written these 3 questions. I've written them out now. And it gives them a starting point. And also everything that you would write in like my personal statement and the people before me, everything that you would write in those personal statements, you can write in these 3 questions as well. It's more like the structure has changed, but the stuff that you would write is practically the same. So I'm going to go through my personal statement and kind of talk you through what kind of things make up a good personal statement. So my first paragraph is an introduction. You don't necessarily need an introduction. You could just go straight into it, but I just prefer to have 1 or 2 sentences about the course I want to study and why I wanted to study it. It doesn't have to be very big. It's like 1 or 2 sentences max. So it was just to do with the fact that I like the sciences and I like positively impacting lives. And I just talked about the 2 different facets of medicine, which is scientific and personal, and how both of them I liked. And I was going to follow up on this in my next 2 paragraphs. So my second paragraph was starting off with my work experience. So the first one I did was the one in the research lab. And the main thing that you want to do in your personal statement is kind of littered throughout it, the keywords and phrases associated with studying medicine. So I highlighted some of them in green. So in terms of scientific method, patient care, these are like keywords, buzzwords that you want to use for your personal statement. And also doing a work experience at a lab is not necessarily what everyone needs to do. I think it's really good if you want to apply to Oxbridge or rest of the group universities because they're research intensive unis and a lot of them may have a station in their MMI, which is the interviews based on research or just current affairs. So doing something in terms of research or your EPQ or wider reading in something very niche and becoming like a specialized in like one little thing of science. It's not necessarily something that you have to do, but it's really good if you want to apply to Russell Group universities. And something that you'll see as a common trend throughout my entire personal statement is that at the end of each paragraph, I have a summary statement. And it's like the last line where I reflect on everything that I've written and it links back to medicine. So that's quite good in making sure that your personal statement doesn't deviate and it sticks with a focus on medicine rather than kind of trailing off and starting to waffle and stuff like that. So I'll also share my personal statement so you can read it in detail. But moving on to my second paragraph, which was my work experience at the hospital. So again, littering it with those keywords, the 4 pillars. So I mentioned autonomy and key skills like communication, patient-centered approach, MDT, teamwork, stuff like that. That's really good because it shows that you're kind of familiar with what you're getting into. And generally, what you want to do is you don't want to list a bunch of different experiences that you saw in your week of work experience. You want to kind of zoom in on 1 or 2 things and explain that really deep and talk about in detail your reflections on that rather than just talking about a bunch of different things that you saw. So that's basically what I did. I saw a chemotherapy delivery. So then I just kind of zoomed in on that, what kind of people were involved, what skills did I see, and what did I learn from it, basically. again, you can see in the last sentence, that's another overall statement which kind of sums up everything that I've learned. The fourth paragraph was about volunteering. Volunteering is really important because it helps you to develop those soft skills. And here you're going to really litter it with a bunch of skills and keywords. For example, patience, emotional intelligence, empathy, communication. All of these different things you're going to be littering it. And you're basically going to talk about, I saw these skills in my work experience, and here's how I'm trying to develop these skills within myself through volunteering. A lot of people ask, do I have to have volunteering in a clinical scenario or like a care home or something like that? You don't have to do it in a care home or anything. It can be completely unrelated, charity shop, mentoring students, whatever. There was a lot of different volunteering that I did. For example, I did a food bank, mentoring students, and a care home. But I just focused again on one thing, talked about it in a lot of detail, and reflected on it a lot. So I think that's quite good. Even though you have many different experiences, that's something that's quite challenging with your personal statement. You've done a lot of different things over the last few years, and this you have to fit everything you've done on basically a side of A4. So you have to make sure you cut out all of the things that aren't as strong, and choose really specific examples. And yeah, so the things that I've mentioned, for example, the skills, the last sentence again talks about medicine. It links back to the overarching message. My fifth paragraph was on supercurriculars. Again, a bit of a beefy paragraph because it shows that you have a big interest in medicine outside of, you have a interest in studying medicine and you've done these things outside of your education. So supercurriculars are things which are related to your degree, which you wouldn't have done, or like I guess you weren't told to do. For example, doing your biology A level isn't a supercurricular, but reading up on something beyond the specification, which links to your degree, would be. So I talked about essay competitions, research competitions, my Olympiads, article writing, and things like that. And I just talked about the skills that I learned from it and how it links to medicine again. Naming certain things that you did was good. Like just because you said you wrote an article, you might as well list some of the things that you wrote about. For example, the opt-out organ donation system, that's a good hot topic. And actually that was pointed out in one of my interviews. They read my personal statement and they asked me to talk more about it. So it's a good example rather than them just asking me, what article did you write? Because I wrote something down, I guess they had a starting point to go off. And yeah, so the stuff that you've done in the summer holidays and your year 12 especially, you're going to be mentioning your supercurricular section. And I think, okay, the second last line. Oh wait, I think the last couple lines. Oh, never mind. I didn't link it back to medicine, but I kind of linked it back to medicine throughout by talking about the different skills. Yeah, like for example, medical research and problem solving and stuff like that. So I think this is the last paragraph. Yeah, extracurriculars and conclusion. So extracurriculars aren't really emphasized, but it's good to mention them. It could just be a sentence or two max. And it's just ways that you de-stress. It can be literally anything, whatever you do. You don't need to make it up or anything. It's genuinely what you enjoy doing. So in terms of if you do sports or if you do like certain hobbies, stuff like that, mention that in extracurriculars. And I had like a conclusion in terms of summarizing, wrapping up everything that I've written about in a couple sentences. And the main point of writing extracurriculars is to talk about burnout and burnout, because medicine is a long career, it's a long degree. So making sure that you have ways to de-stress, that's really important. And it just shows that you're aware of the different challenges of studying medicine and having medicine as a career. If you talk about the ways that you de-stress and link it back to medicine, like I did in the first line. Also, it's worth mentioning the drawbacks of studying medicine, because everything will be glamorized up until now. And then you have to make sure that you have a full picture and a multifaceted view of medicine, because especially now where there's a lot of things in the media regarding like pay and strikes and stuff like that, especially in your interviews, you're going to be talking about all of the challenges of medicine. So you want to mention maybe a couple challenges in your personal statement, so that you show that you know what being a doctor is really about, rather than it's not just saving lives and things like that. It's long hours, night shifts potentially, long training years, stuff like that. So if you mention some challenges, but despite those challenges, you still want to study medicine, and why? That's, I guess, what a good conclusion would be. And it's worth mentioning that in your personal statement too. For example, I mentioned like it involves a lot of sacrifice, but despite that, it's an interpersonal and fulfilling career. And yeah, that's about it. I guess if anyone has any questions, you can let me know in the chat or just message me. But that's basically my application journey. There's a lot of things that you've got to do, and there's many different stages to applying to medicine. It's a really long process, especially in year 13 and year 12, where you've got so many things to do. You know, just revising for the interviews, it's basically a whole different syllabus that you've got to learn. You've got to learn a lot of different things, especially with managing your A levels on top of that. So it's challenging, and there's a lot of steps where you can trip up. But even if you've tripped up in one or two steps, for example, you tripped up at the Ucat or your GCSE weren't as good, you just have to apply strategically and apply to your strengths, and you should be all right. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. That was very useful and insightful as well. Now I'm just gonna reshare my screen and we'll end off the segment with a mental well-being presentation. I hope you can see my screen now. And can we have our well-being officers present now, please?
Hi everyone. I want to talk about something many of us experience but don't always recognize, and that is burnout. So, what exactly is burnout? Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds up due to prolonged or excessive stress. This stress often comes from work, caregiving, school, or even ongoing pressure to meet expectations. Burnout can really impact our lives. It reduces our motivation, performance, and overall well-being, making it hard to enjoy things or function at our best. There are three main categories of symptoms we tend to see. Emotionally, we might feel drained, helpless, or like we've lost our drive. Irritability and frustration are common too. Physically, burnout can lead to chronic fatigue, headaches, body aches, or sleeping difficulties. And behaviorally, you might find yourself withdrawing from others, procrastinating more often, or using food, alcohol, or even drugs to cope. Recognizing these signs early is key to preventing long-term burnout. Now that we've identified what burnout is, let's talk about how we can prevent it. Firstly, you can establish healthy boundaries. Sometimes the best thing we can do for our well-being is to say no when needed. It's okay to set dedicated off hours with no work or school tasks and protect your personal time. Secondly, you should prioritize self-care. This includes getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, exercising regularly, and practicing mindfulness or meditation. These are small but powerful ways to support your mental health daily. Mastering time management is also very important. You should be breaking tasks into smaller chunks, setting realistic deadlines, and trying not to overcommit. One popular method is a Pomodoro technique, where you have 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a 5-minute break. It helps keeps your mind refreshed and avoids overload. Finally, let's look at some resources that can help you or others if you're feeling burnt out. One of the most common self-assessment checklists is the MBI, which asks questions to help you understand your emotional state. Another tool is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which helps identify unmet needs. This is often used to boost workplace morale. Some hospitals offer wellness rooms or drop-down days with therapists who understand stress-related exhaustion. These are great spaces to release emotion and reflect, especially for those in high-pressure environments. And one of the most overlooked tools is simply talking to someone. Whether it's a friend, colleague, or therapist, having a support network makes a huge difference. The NHS website also offers fantastic mental health guidance, including ways to recognize and stop burnout. The most important thing to remember is that burnout is real, it's valid, and it's okay to ask for help. To wrap up, I just want to say this. Burnout doesn't mean weakness. It's a sign you've been strong for too long without rest. Taking care of your mental health is a strength, not a luxury. Remember that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the amazing ending. And I'll be sending the link to the attendance form. And if you have any more questions in chat, we will stay behind to answer them. Once again, I would like to say thank you so much for everyone that presented, and thank you for attending as well. And yeah, I hope you had a good time and all the information that was given was useful in any sort of way. And yeah, just fill in the attendance form and then we'll end the meeting soon.